She stumbled in at 4 in the morning, mascara smeared, dress wrinkled, reeking of another man's cologne. Laura didn't even try to hide it anymore. She just looked at me sitting in my recliner, nursing a whiskey, and smirked. "Don't ask," she said, kicking off her heels. I didn't, but when she saw who was sitting in my kitchen the next morning, her own mother holding a manila envelope and weeping silently, she just collapsed. My name is Jack Morrison, and I fix airplanes for a living. Cessnas, Pipers, the occasional corporate jet. It's honest work, dirty work, the kind that gets under your fingernails and stays there. The kind Laura used to love about me, back when she was a small-town girl who thought a man with calloused hands was sexy. That was before she became a hotshot lawyer, before she started making 3 times my salary, before she decided I wasn't good enough for her anymore. The envelope contained photos. Lots of them. Laura and Scott Brennan, her sleazy legal associate at the Sunset Motel on Highway 6, in his BMW, in the parking garage of her law firm. The private investigator I'd hired was thorough, I'll give him that. "Jack, I can explain," Laura started, but I held up a hand. "Save it for the divorce lawyer," I said. "Your mother's already seen enough." Susan Walsh, Laura's mother, looked like she'd aged 10 years overnight. "How could you do this to your family?" she whispered to her daughter. "To Jack? To the girls? The girls. Beth 13 and Janie 10, my daughters who still thought their mother hung the moon. They were upstairs sleeping, blissfully unaware that their world was about to implode." Laura's face went from shocked to calculating in about 2 seconds. That's when I knew I was dealing with the real Laura, not the woman I'd married 15 years ago, but the hunter she'd become. "You hired a private investigator?" she said, her voice turning cold. "You had me followed?" "I hired a professional to document what I already suspected," I replied. "The credit card bills were pretty clear. The Sunset Motel isn't exactly known for its business conferences." She stood up straighter, and I could see her lawyer instincts kicking in. "This is maltreatment, Jack. I could have you arrested." I laughed, actually laughed. "For what? Hiring a licensed investigator to photograph you in public places? Good luck with that, counselor." Her mother was still crying. "Laura, honey, just stop, please." But Laura was just getting started. "You think you're so clever, don't you, Jack? The blue-collar hero catching his cheating wife? Well, here's a news flash. I've been planning this for months. I have my own lawyer. I have documentation of every penny you've spent on this little investigation, and I'm going to take you for everything you're worth." That's when I smiled, really smiled for the first time in months. "You know what, Laura? I was hoping you'd say something like that." I pulled out my phone and stopped the recording app. "Thanks for that confession, especially the part about planning this for months. My lawyer's going to love that." Her face went white. Her mother looked up from her tissues, confused. "You see," I continued, "while you were busy screwing Scott Brennan, I was busy talking to Miss Dorothy Keene, the best divorce attorney in 3 counties. Turns out Texas is real particular about infidelity, especially when one spouse has been systematically hiding assets and planning to defraud the other." I stood up, walked to the kitchen counter, and picked up another envelope. "These are copies of your secret credit card applications, the ones you filled out using my business as collateral without my knowledge, the ones you've been using to fund your little love nest with Scott." Laura grabbed for the envelope, but I held it out of reach. "Don't worry, honey. You'll get copies when your lawyer does, along with the photos, the hotel receipts, and this lovely recording of you admitting to months of premeditation." Her mother stood up slowly. "I think I should go." "No, Susan," I said gently. "You should stay. Your daughter's about to learn what happens when you try to destroy a man who knows how to rebuild engines from scratch." Laura's face was pure rage now. "You fool! You think you can threaten me?" "I'm not threatening you," I said. "I'm promising you. You wanted a war, you got one. But you made one crucial mistake." "What's that?" "You forgot that I know how to fix things that are broken. And honey, I'm about to fix you permanently." The next morning, I drove to my hangar like nothing had happened. Morrison Aircraft Repair sits on 12 acres of cracked concrete at the edge of Millfield Regional Airport. It's not much to look at. 3 metal buildings, a runway that's seen better days, and enough spare parts to build a small air force. But it's mine. Every bolt and rivet of it. My crew was already there. Tommy Rodriguez, my head mechanic, Bill Hayes, who handles electronics, and Danny Walsh, yes, Laura's cousin, though he's been working for me longer than I've been married to his cousin. "Boss looks like hell," Tommy said as I walked in. Boss feels like hell, I replied, but that's about to change. I'd been up most of the night, not drinking or feeling sorry for myself, but planning. See, when you spend your life fixing complex machines, you develop a certain approach to problems. You diagnose the issue, you gather the right tools, and you methodically dismantle everything until you can rebuild it the way it should work. Laura thought she was dealing with a simple, small-town mechanic. She had no idea she'd just declared war on someone who approaches every problem like a precision instrument. My phone rang. Dorothy Keene, my lawyer. Jack, I've reviewed everything you sent over. This is good, very good. Your wife's been sloppy, and that recording last night was the cherry on top. What's our next move? I'm filing papers this afternoon. Infidelity, fraud, breach of fiduciary duty. With this evidence, I can probably get you primary custody and keep most of your assets intact. What about the business? That's where it gets interesting. Since she used your business as collateral without your knowledge, she's actually committed fraud. I can not only protect your business, I can probably get her criminally charged if you want to push it. I thought about that. Criminal charges would destroy her career, her reputation, everything she'd worked for. Let's hold that in reserve, I said. I might have better uses for it. After I hung up, Danny approached me. He looked uncomfortable. Jack, I heard about, the thing with Laura. Your cousin's been busy, I said. Look, man, family's family. But what she did, that's not right. I just want you to know, whatever happens, I'm not picking sides. I work for you, and you've been good to me. I clapped him on the shoulder. I appreciate that, Danny. But this isn't about sides. This is about consequences. That afternoon, I got a call from Beth, my older daughter. She was crying. Daddy, Mom says you're trying to steal us from her. She says you hired bad people to spy on her. My heart broke a little. Sweetheart, that's not true. I hired someone to find out why Mommy was staying out so late. I would never try to steal you from anyone. But Mom says you're going to try to take us away. Beth, listen to me. I love you and Janie more than anything in this world. All I want is for you to be safe and happy. Can you trust me on that? I guess so. Good. Now, I need to ask you something, and I want you to tell me the truth. Has your mother been bringing anyone to the house when I'm not there? Silence. Beth? I'm not supposed to tell. Honey, you're not in trouble. I just need to know. There's a man. He comes over sometimes when you're at work. Mom said he's helping her with work stuff, but they go upstairs a lot. I closed my eyes. What's his name? Scott. He drives a really nice car. Okay, sweetheart. Thank you for telling me the truth. You're not in trouble, and this isn't your fault, okay? After I hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, staring at the wall. Laura hadn't just been cheating on me. She'd been doing it in our house, in front of our children. She'd made them accomplices to her betrayal. That changed things. I picked up my phone and called Dorothy back. I've changed my mind about those criminal charges, I said. What happened? She's been bringing him to the house, in front of the kids. Dorothy was quiet for a moment. That's actually child endangerment, depending on how you frame it. Exposing minors to adult situations, creating an unstable home environment. Frame it however you need to. I want her destroyed. Jack, are you sure? Once we go down this path, I'm sure. She made this about our kids. Now, it's personal. That evening, Laura came home late again. She walked into the living room where I was watching TV with Janie. We need to talk, she said. Janie, go upstairs and do your homework, I said. After our daughter left, Laura sat down across from me. She looked tired, older somehow. I talked to my lawyer today, she said. Good for you. He says you're being vindictive, that you're trying to destroy me just because you can't handle the fact that I found someone better. I muted the TV and looked at her. Really looked at her. When had she become this stranger? Better? I said. Scott Brennan, the guy who's been married 3 times and has a gambling problem? Her face flickered. He doesn't have a gambling problem. 50 grand in debt to the Riverside Casino says otherwise. My investigator was very thorough. She stood up quickly. You had him investigated too? Laura, I had everything investigated. Your boyfriend, your finances, your travel records, your phone records, everything. Did you really think I'd go into this blind? You're sick, she said. This is obsessive behavior. No, I said, standing up to face her. This is strategic behavior. There's a difference. You want to play in the big leagues? Fine. But don't act surprised when someone actually knows how to play the game. She stared at me for a long moment. I don't know who you are anymore. Funny, I said. I was thinking the same thing about you. The next few days were a blur of legal paperwork and strategic planning. Dorothy filed our initial papers, and Laura's lawyer, some hotshot from Dallas, responded with a countersuit that was pure fantasy. He claimed I was emotionally abusive, financially controlling, and had created a hostile home environment. It's standard procedure, Dorothy explained. They're trying to muddy the waters, make it look like both parties are at fault. Will it work? Not with the evidence we have, but it tells me they're worried. They should be worried. I was at the hangar Thursday morning when my phone rang. It was my old friend Mike Patterson. We'd been buddies since high school, and he worked as a manager at First National Bank, the same bank where Laura had her secret credit cards. Jack, I probably shouldn't be calling you about this, but I thought you should know. Laura came in yesterday with some guy trying to access your business accounts. What did you tell them? I told them they needed your signature for any changes. She got pretty heated about it. Said she was your wife and had every right to the money. What about the guy? Sleazy-looking dude in an expensive suit. He kept trying to intimidate me, talking about legal action and bank regulations. I told him to take it up with our legal department. Thanks for the heads up, Mike. There's more. She also tried to get information about your personal accounts. When I wouldn't give it to her, she threatened to move all her business to Millfield Community Bank. I laughed. Let her. They can deal with her debt. After I hung up, I realized Laura was getting desperate. Good. Desperate people make mistakes. That afternoon, I got an unexpected visitor, Scott Brennan himself, standing in my hangar like he owned the place. We need to talk, he said. Tommy and Bill stopped working and looked at me. I nodded toward the office. 5 minutes, I said. Scott followed me into my office and closed the door. Up close, he was smaller than I'd expected. Maybe 5'8", soft around the middle, with the kind of fake tan that screamed insecurity. This has gone far enough, he said. Has it? Laura's a good woman. She doesn't deserve what you're doing to her. I leaned back in my chair and studied him. What exactly do you think I'm doing to her? The investigation, the threats, trying to turn her kids against her, it's maltreatment. Maltreatment. I stood up slowly. Scott took a step back. Let me tell you what maltreatment looks like, Scott. Maltreatment is sleeping with a married woman in her husband's bed. Maltreatment is making her children lie to cover up your affair. Maltreatment is helping her commit fraud against her husband's business. You never what? Helped her fill out those credit card applications? Helped her hide the bills? Helped her plan to drain my accounts before she filed for divorce? His face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a folder. These are copies of the hotel receipts. Your credit card, Scott. The same nights Laura told me she was working late. The same nights she told the kids she was at continuing education seminars. I flipped through the papers. The Sunset Motel, the Holiday Inn, the Marriott downtown. Funny thing about hotel security cameras, they keep recordings for months. Scott sat down heavily. What do you want? I want you to understand something. Laura thinks she's playing chess, but she's actually playing with dynamite. And you, Scott, are standing right next to the fuse. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. See, Laura's been telling people that I'm just a simple mechanic who doesn't understand how the world works. But here's what she forgot. I understand how things break. And brother, you and Laura are about to break in ways you can't imagine. Scott stood up quickly. I should go. Yes, you should, but Scott, he turned back. Next time you want to talk to me, call first. This is a working hangar and we don't like interruptions. After he left, Tommy came into the office. Boss, you want us to keep an eye on that guy? No need, he's scared. Scared people don't cause trouble. They cause mistakes. That evening, I was having dinner with the girls when Laura came home. She looked furious. We need to talk. Now. We're eating dinner, I said. The girls can eat upstairs. No, I said firmly. The girls can finish their dinner at the table like civilized people. If you want to talk, you can wait. Laura stood there for a moment, clearly wanting to argue, but not wanting to make a scene in front of the kids. She sat down at the far end of the table. How was school today? I asked Beth. Good. We're doing a project on family history. That sounds interesting. I have to interview family members about their jobs and stuff. Can I interview you about fixing airplanes? Of course, sweetheart. Laura cleared her throat loudly. Beth, maybe you should interview someone with a more professional career. The table went quiet. Beth looked confused. What do you mean, Mom? I mean someone with a college education. Someone who works in an office. I felt my jaw clench, but I kept my voice calm. Your father has 2 associate degrees and runs his own business, Beth. That's plenty professional. It's not the same thing, Laura said. You're right, I said. It's better. I actually create value instead of just shuffling papers around. Daddy, Janie said quietly, why are you and Mommy always fighting now? Laura and I looked at each other across the table. For just a moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I'd married, someone who cared more about her children than her ego. We're not fighting, baby, Laura said. We're just discussing things. It sounds like fighting, Beth said. I reached over and squeezed her hand. Sometimes adults have disagreements, but that doesn't mean we don't love you girls. Do you still love Mommy? Janie asked. I looked at Laura. She was staring at her plate. I love the Mommy you girls know, I said finally. The one who reads you bedtime stories and makes pancakes on Saturday morning. Laura looked up at me, and for just a second I thought I saw tears in her eyes. Then her phone buzzed. She looked at it, and whatever she saw there made her face harden again. I have to take this, she said, standing up. She walked into the kitchen, and I could hear her talking in low, urgent tones. That's Scott, Beth said quietly. How do you know? She always talks different when it's him, like she's trying to sound prettier. Out of the mouths of babes. When Laura came back, she looked at me with pure hatred. You think you're so clever, she said. The girls were watching us, wide-eyed. Girls, go upstairs, I said. But we're not done eating. Go, now. After they left, Laura leaned forward. Scott told me about your little conversation today. Did he? You can't intimidate us, Jack. We're not backing down. Good, I said. I'd hate for this to be too easy. She stared at me for a long moment, then shook her head. I don't know what happened to you. You used to be a good man. I used to be a trusting man, I replied. There's a difference. Friday night, I was at Murphy's Bar with my crew. It's the kind of place where mechanics and construction workers go to drink beer and complain about their lives. The kind of place Laura always said was beneath us. I was nursing my second beer when Mike Patterson walked in with 2 guys I recognized. Jim Walsh and Steve Morrison, old friends from high school. We'd been tight once, the 4 of us, but things had gotten complicated over the years. Mike sat down at our table, but Jim and Steve hung back. Guys, Mike said, we need to talk. Tommy and Bill looked at me. I nodded, and they moved to the bar. What's on your mind? I asked. Jim finally came over, but he didn't sit down. Jack, we've been friends for 20 years. Have we? Don't be like that. You know what I mean. Steve joined us, looking uncomfortable. Look, man, we heard about what's happening with Laura. And we think you need to let it go, Jim said. I set down my beer and looked at them. Really looked at them. Let it go. She's moving on, Steve said. Maybe you should too. Moving on. I repeated their words, slowly, with my money, my house, and my kids. It doesn't have to be ugly, Mike said. People get divorced all the time. People get divorced? I agreed. They don't usually commit fraud while they're doing it. Jim shifted uncomfortably. That's between you and your lawyers. Is it? Because it seems like you 3 have already decided how this should play out. Steve leaned forward. Jack, Laura's a good woman. She made a mistake, but... Stop. I held up a hand. Just stop right there. I stood up slowly. The bar had gotten quieter, and I could feel people watching us. Let me make sure I understand this. My wife of 15 years has been cheating on me for months. She's been stealing from my business. She's been bringing her boyfriend around my children. And you 3 think I should just let it go? We think you should be the bigger man, Jim said. The bigger man? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You know what the bigger man would do, Jim? The bigger man would walk away, let her have everything, and start over somewhere else. Is that what you're suggesting? We're suggesting you stop trying to destroy her, Steve said. That's when I understood. She got to you. Mike looked away. It's not like that. No? Then what's it like? Because 3 of my oldest friends don't just show up to lecture me about being vindictive unless someone's been talking to them. Jim sat down heavily. She called us, okay? She's scared, Jack. She says you're not the man she married, that you've become obsessive and threatening. And you believed her. We've known Laura for 15 years too, Steve said. She's not some monster. I looked around the table at these men I'd considered brothers, men I'd stood up for at their weddings, men I'd helped through divorces and job losses and family crises. You know what? I said. You're right. Laura's not a monster. She's something worse. She's a manipulator. And apparently she's better at it than I gave her credit for. Jack? Mike started. No, let me finish. She's been planning this for months. She's been stealing from me, lying to our children, and setting me up to look like the bad guy. And now she's got my 3 best friends convinced that I'm the problem. I picked up my beer and drained it. But here's what she didn't count on. I don't need you to like what I'm doing. I don't need your approval or your friendship. What I need is justice, and I'm going to get it with or without you. Jim stood up. If that's how you want it. That's how she made it, I replied. Steve shook his head. This is going to end badly for everyone. It already has, I said. The question is whether it ends badly for me or badly for the people who betrayed me. After they left, Tommy and Bill came back to the table. Rough night, boss? Tommy asked. Getting better by the minute, I said. You want us to have a word with those guys? Bill asked. No, they made their choice. But I want you both to know, whatever happens in the next few weeks, it might get ugly. If you want to distance yourselves from me, I'll understand. Tommy snorted. Boss, you gave me a job when nobody else would. You helped me get clean. You stood by me when my wife left. Those guys in the suits? They don't know you like we do. Bill nodded. Besides, sounds like your wife needs to learn what happens when you mess with family. You guys aren't family, I said. You're employees. Same difference, Tommy said. We got your back. I looked at these 2 men, a reform dependent and a high school dropout, and realized they had more loyalty in their little fingers than my oldest friends had in their entire bodies. Thanks, I said. But what I'm planning, it's not going to be pretty. Good, Bill said. Pretty's overrated. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Laura was downstairs on the couch. We hadn't shared a bed since the night I confronted her. I could hear her talking on the phone, probably to Scott, planning their next move. My phone buzzed. A text from Jim. It's not too late to fix this. I deleted it without responding. Another text, this one from Steve. Think about your girls. I was thinking about my girls. I was thinking about what kind of world I was leaving them, what kind of lesson I was teaching them about standing up for yourself and demanding respect. I was thinking about Beth's project on family history and what she would say about her father. Would she say he was a man who fought for his family, or a man who rolled over and let people walk all over him? I was thinking about Janie's question, do you still love mommy? The truth was complicated. I loved the woman Laura used to be. I loved the mother she could still be when she forgot to be calculating and manipulative. But the woman downstairs, whispering sweet nothings to her boyfriend while her husband lay alone upstairs, that woman was a stranger. And strangers don't get the benefit of the doubt. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Dorothy. Can't sleep either, her text read. Too much to think about, I replied. Good news. I got a copy of Laura's financial disclosure. She's been hiding more than we thought. How much more? Call me in the morning. You're going to like this. I set the phone aside and closed my eyes. Tomorrow, the real war would begin. Dorothy's office was downtown, in one of those old buildings that had been converted from a department store into professional suites. She specialized in high-stakes divorces, the kind where people fought over millions instead of thousands. I've been doing this for 23 years, she said, spreading papers across her conference table. And I have never seen someone be this stupid about hiding assets. She handed me a thick folder. Your wife has been very busy. 3 separate credit cards, 2 bank accounts, and a safety deposit box, all in her maiden name. I flipped through the papers. Hotel receipts, jewelry purchases, cash withdrawals. Thousands of dollars I'd never seen. How did she think she'd get away with this? She probably figured you'd roll over and take whatever settlement she offered. Most men do, especially when there are kids involved. Dorothy pulled out another folder. But this is the interesting part. She's been moving money into an account under Scott Brennan's name. Technically, that's money laundering. Money laundering? She's using fraudulently obtained credit to fund an account in someone else's name for the purpose of hiding assets from her spouse. In Texas, that's a felony. I sat back in my chair. What are my options? We can file criminal charges, which would probably send her to prison for 2 to 5 years. We can use it as leverage to get everything you want in the divorce, or we can do both. What do you recommend? Dorothy leaned forward. Honestly, I think she's going to keep escalating until you stop her. People like Laura don't back down. They double down. If you want this to end, you need to end it decisively. Meaning? Meaning you destroy her so completely that she never tries anything like this again? I thought about my conversation with Jim, Mike, and Steve, about how easily Laura had turned my oldest friends against me, about how she was probably doing the same thing with everyone else in our social circle. Do it, I said. Criminal charges? Everything. I want her to understand that actions have consequences. Dorothy nodded. I'll need a few days to put everything together. In the meantime, I'd suggest you prepare for retaliation. When people like Laura feel cornered, they lash out. She was right. That afternoon, I got a call from Beth's school. The principal wanted to see me immediately. Mrs. Henderson was a stern woman in her 50s who'd been dealing with difficult parents for decades. She looked uncomfortable when I walked into her office. Mr. Morrison, we need to discuss Beth's situation. What situation? This morning, your wife came in with some concerning allegations about your behavior at home. I felt my stomach drop. What kind of allegations? She says you've been drinking heavily, that you've been verbally abusive to her and the children, and that she's concerned about their safety. That's not true. She seemed very upset. She was crying, talking about how you've changed, how you're not the man she married. I closed my eyes. Mrs. Henderson, did Laura provide any evidence of these allegations? Any witnesses, any documentation? Well, no, but did she file a police report? Contact Child Protective Services? Take the children to a doctor or counselor? Mrs. Henderson looked uncomfortable. No, but that doesn't mean... It means she's lying. I leaned forward. Mrs. Henderson, I'm going through a difficult divorce. My wife has been having an affair, and I have documentation proving she's been stealing from my business. She's desperate, and she's trying to make me look like the bad guy. That's a very serious accusation, Mr. Morrison. Yes, it is, and I can prove every word of it. I pulled out my phone and called Dorothy. Can you send over copies of the fraud documentation to Beth's school? They need to understand what we're dealing with. After I hung up, Mrs. Henderson looked at me with new eyes. Mr. Morrison, if what you're saying is true, it is true, and I suspect this is just the beginning. My wife is going to try to turn everyone against me. Friends, family, teachers, neighbors. She's going to paint herself as the sufferer and me as the villain. What do you want me to do? I want you to document everything. Every conversation, every allegation, every interaction. Because when this goes to court, I want a complete record of her behavior. That evening, Laura was waiting for me when I got home. She was sitting in the living room with her mother and her brother, Kevin Walsh, a lawyer from Houston who'd always thought I wasn't good enough for his sister. We need to talk, Kevin said. About what? About your behavior. Laura's told us what's been happening, and we're concerned. I looked around the room. Laura was sitting with her hands folded, looking like a grieving widow. Her mother was dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. Kevin was standing with his arms crossed, trying to look intimidating. What exactly has Laura told you? That you've been drinking. That you've been threatening her and her boyfriend. That you hired people to spy on her, Kevin said. All true, I said, except the drinking part. I had 2 beers last night and a glass of whiskey the night I found out about the affair. Hardly alcoholism. Jack? Susan said softly. We're worried about you. This isn't like you. You're right, I said. The old me would have rolled over and let Laura have whatever she wanted. The old me would have been more concerned about keeping the peace than demanding justice. Justice? Kevin laughed. You call maltreatment and intimidation justice? I call documenting fraud and infidelity justice. I call protecting my children and my business justice. I call making sure Laura faces consequences for her actions justice. Laura finally spoke. You're scaring the girls, Jack. Beth came home from school crying because you had some kind of confrontation with her principal. I had a conversation with her principal about the lies you told her. They're not lies. I pulled out my phone and hit play on the recording from that first morning. Laura's voice filled the room. Well, here's a newsflash. I've been planning this for months. I have my own lawyer. I have documentation of every penny you've spent on this little investigation. And I'm going to take you for everything you're worth. The room went silent. That was recorded legally in my own home after Laura admitted to months of premeditation, I said. Would you like to hear the part where she admits to the affair? Kevin looked at his sister. Laura, you said... I said what I needed to say to protect myself, Laura snapped. Jack's been building a case against me for months. He's trying to destroy me. No, I said. I'm trying to protect myself and my children from someone who's been systematically lying, cheating, and stealing. There's a difference. Susan stood up. This has gone too far. You're all adults. You have children to think about. You're right, I said. I do have children to think about, which is why I'm not going to let their mother get away with fraud and infidelity. Kevin stepped forward. Jack, I'm going to give you some free legal advice. Back off. You're building a maltreatment case against yourself, and Laura's going to use it to take everything you have. Kevin, I'm going to give you some free advice in return. Your sister is going to prison. I have documentation of fraud, money laundering, and perjury. I have recordings, photographs, and financial records. I have witnesses and expert testimony. I looked around the room. You can either accept that and try to minimize the damage, or you can keep pretending Laura's the sufferer and watch her destroy herself completely. Laura stood up quickly. Get out. This is my house. I said, get out. Laura, her mother said, please. No, I'm done with this. Jack, I want you out of this house tonight. I smiled. Actually, that's not going to happen. See, this house is in both our names, but the mortgage is secured by my business, which means I have a legal right to be here, and you don't have the right to kick me out. We'll see about that, Kevin said. Yes, we will. In fact, we'll see about a lot of things. Starting Monday morning when I file criminal charges against your sister. The room went dead quiet. Criminal charges, Susan whispered. Fraud, money laundering, perjury, and child endangerment. Probably others, depending on what else my lawyer finds. Laura's face went white. You can't do that. I can and I will. You wanted to play hardball, Laura. Congratulations. You're about to learn what hardball actually looks like. Monday morning came like a thunderstorm. I was at the hangar early, trying to focus on work, when my phone started ringing. First Dorothy, then the bank, then Beth's school again. Jack, we have a problem, Dorothy said. Laura filed an emergency restraining order this morning. She's claiming you threatened her family. That's ridiculous. I know it's ridiculous. You know it's ridiculous. But she has 3 witnesses who say you were aggressive and threatening during a family meeting last night. Her mother, her brother, and probably Scott. Of course. What does this mean? It means you can't go home, you can't contact her directly, and you can't be within 500 feet of her or the children until we get a hearing. I felt the world tilt sideways. She's using my own children as weapons. That's exactly what she's doing. The good news is, restraining orders based on false allegations tend to backfire spectacularly. The bad news is, we have to play defense for a few days. How long until the hearing? Thursday morning. I'll file our evidence today, including the recordings and financial documents. By Thursday, the judge will have a complete picture of what's really going on. After I hung up, I sat in my office staring at the wall. Laura had just made the biggest mistake of her life, but it was going to cost me 3 days with my daughters. Tommy knocked on the door. Boss? You okay? I'm fine. Just dealing with some legal complications. Anything we can do? I thought about that. Actually, yes. I need you to document everything that happens here for the next few days. Every phone call, every visitor, every conversation. Laura's going to try to make me look unstable, so I need witnesses to my actual behavior. You got it. That afternoon, I checked into a motel across town and tried to figure out my next move. I couldn't contact Laura or the girls directly, but the restraining order didn't prevent me from gathering evidence. I called the private investigator. I need everything you can find on Scott Brennan. Financial records, employment history, criminal background, civil lawsuits, everything. How fast do you need it? By Wednesday night. That's going to cost extra. I don't care what it costs. Tuesday morning, I got a call from Mike Patterson at the bank. Jack, I thought you should know. Laura came in yesterday with a court order trying to freeze your business accounts. Did it work? No, the restraining order doesn't give her access to your business assets. But she's trying everything she can think of. What else? She also came in with Scott Brennan. He was asking about getting added to your personal accounts as a joint holder. I laughed, actually laughed. She's really lost her mind. It gets worse. When I told them no, Scott started yelling about bank regulations and customer rights. I had to call security. Did you document it? Every word. I figured you'd want a record. Tuesday afternoon, I got an unexpected visitor at the motel. Kevin Walsh, Laura's brother, looking like he hadn't slept. We need to talk, he said. I thought you were on Laura's side. I was, until I did some digging of my own. He sat down heavily in the motel room's single chair. Jack, I've been a lawyer for 15 years. I've seen a lot of messy divorces, but what Laura's doing, this isn't just messy. This is criminal. I tried to tell you that. I know. I didn't want to believe it. She's my sister, you know? But when I started looking at the financial records she gave me, he shook his head. She's been lying to everyone, including her own family. What changed your mind? I found the safety deposit box, the one with $50,000 in cash and jewelry receipts going back 6 months. Kevin pulled out a folder. She's been systematically draining your assets and hiding them. The credit card fraud is just the tip of the iceberg. I looked through the papers. It was worse than I'd thought. Why are you telling me this? Because I have kids too. And because what she's doing to Beth and Janie. It's not right. They don't deserve to be caught in the middle of this. What do you want me to do? I want you to give her one last chance to come clean and settle this quietly. If she doesn't take it, I'll testify against her. I stared at him. You'd testify against your own sister? I'd testify for the truth. There's a difference. Wednesday night, the private investigator called with his report on Scott Brennan. This guy's a piece of work, he said. 3 divorces, 2 bankruptcies, and a gambling obsession that's gotten him banned from half the casinos in Louisiana. What else? He's also facing a malpractice suit from a former client. Apparently, he was sleeping with the client's wife while representing the husband in their divorce. You're kidding. Gets better. The client's wife was also stealing from her husband's business to fund Scott's gambling debts. I sat down slowly. Are you telling me Scott's done this before? I'm telling you, Scott Brennan has a pattern of seducing married women and helping them defraud their husbands. Your wife isn't his first sufferer. She's his latest mark. Thursday morning, I walked into the courthouse feeling like I was carrying dynamite. Dorothy met me at the security checkpoint. Are you ready for this? She asked. I've been ready for weeks. The hearing was in Judge Martinez's courtroom. She was known as a tough, no-nonsense judge who didn't tolerate games or theatrics. Laura was already there with her lawyer, looking appropriately suffererized. Scott was sitting in the gallery, trying to look supportive. Kevin was sitting on the opposite side, which confused everyone except me. Your Honor, Laura's lawyer began, my client is in fear for her safety and the safety of her children. Mr. Morrison has become increasingly unstable and threatening since learning about her decision to end their marriage. Judge Martinez looked at the file. Mr. Morrison, how do you respond to these allegations? Dorothy stood up. Your Honor, we have extensive evidence that Mrs. Morrison's allegations are not only false, but part of a systematic campaign to defraud my client and manipulate these proceedings. That's a serious accusation, Counselor. Yes, Your Honor. We have recordings, financial documents, and witness testimony that paint a very different picture of this situation. For the next hour, Dorothy methodically destroyed Laura's case. The recordings, the financial evidence, the testimony from bank officials and school administrators. By the time she was finished, Laura looked like she wanted to disappear. Mrs. Morrison, Judge Martinez said, do you have any response to this evidence? Laura's lawyer whispered something to her. She shook her head. Your Honor, my client maintains that she was acting in self-defense against an increasingly unstable husband. Judge Martinez looked at Laura directly. Mrs. Morrison, are you aware that filing false allegations in a restraining order petition is perjury? I was scared, Your Honor. Were you scared when you opened credit cards in your husband's name without his knowledge? Silence. Were you scared when you moved marital assets into accounts under another person's name? More silence. Judge Martinez closed the file. I'm dismissing this restraining order immediately. Mrs. Morrison, I'm also referring this case to the district attorney's office for investigation of possible criminal charges. Laura's face went white. Furthermore, I'm issuing a temporary custody order giving Mr. Morrison primary custody of the minor children, pending a full investigation of Mrs. Morrison's fitness as a parent. Laura stood up quickly. Your Honor, you can't. I can, and I am. Mrs. Morrison, you have systematically lied to this court, to your children's school, and apparently to everyone else in your life. Until we can determine the full extent of your deception, I'm not comfortable leaving those children in your primary care. As we left the courthouse, Laura was crying in the hallway. Scott was nowhere to be seen. Apparently, he'd slipped out during the testimony about his background. Kevin approached me outside. Jack, I'm sorry for all of it. You did the right thing in the end. What happens now? Now Laura faces the consequences of her choices, and I try to put my family back together. That evening, I picked up Beth and Janie from Laura's mother's house. They were confused and scared, but they were safe. "Daddy, is Mommy going to jail?" Janie asked. "I don't know, sweetheart. But whatever happens, you and Beth are going to be okay." "Are you and Mommy getting divorced?" "Yes, we are." "Is it because of Scott?" I looked at my daughter, my smart, perceptive daughter, who'd been watching this whole mess unfold. "It's because your mother made some very bad choices, and now she has to face the consequences." That night, after the girls were asleep, I sat on my back porch with a beer and thought about the last few weeks. Laura had tried to destroy me and instead had destroyed herself. My oldest friends had abandoned me, but I'd learned who my real friends were. Most importantly, I'd learned something about myself. I wasn't the pushover Laura thought I was. When someone tried to destroy my family and my livelihood, I could fight back. And I could win. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You think you've won, but this isn't over." I deleted it and turned off my phone. Tomorrow, I'd start rebuilding my life. Tonight, I was just going to sit here and enjoy the silence. But as I sat there, I realized the silence wasn't peaceful. It was ominous. Laura wasn't the type to give up easily, and Scott Brennan had too much to lose to just disappear quietly. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Friday morning brought news I should have expected, but somehow didn't see coming. Dorothy called at 7 a.m. "Jack, we have a problem. Laura and Scott disappeared last night." I was making breakfast for the girls, trying to establish some kind of normal routine. "What do you mean, disappeared?" "I mean, they're gone. Laura cleaned out what was left of her bank accounts, Scott quit his job, and they're both in the wind." I set down the spatula. "With what money? We froze her accounts." "She had cash we didn't know about. Remember that safety deposit box Kevin found? Apparently, there were others." Beth walked into the kitchen, already dressed for school. "Who was that, Daddy?" "Work stuff, sweetheart. Go wake up your sister." After Beth left, I continued the conversation. "How much are we talking about?" "Maybe 100,000, possibly more. Enough to disappear for a while." "What about the criminal charges?" "Still proceeding. But it's hard to prosecute people you can't find." I thought about the text message from the night before. "Dorothy, I think they're planning something. Laura's not the type to just run away." "What kind of something?" "I don't know, but she sent me a message last night saying this wasn't over." "Jack, I want you to call the police and report that message. If she's making threats." "It wasn't technically a threat, just a statement. Still, document everything. If they're planning some kind of retaliation." After I hung up, I called Tommy at the hangar. "I need you and Bill to keep an eye on things today. Laura and her boyfriend have disappeared, and I'm worried they might try something stupid." "What kind of stupid?" "The kind that involves my business or my house. Just be alert, okay?" "You got it, boss." I dropped the girls off at school and went to the hangar. Everything looked normal. Too normal. I had the nagging feeling that something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on what. Around noon, I got a call from Beth's school. "Mr. Morrison, this is Mrs. Henderson. I wanted to let you know that someone called this morning claiming to be your wife, saying she was picking up the girls early for a doctor's appointment." My blood went cold. "What did you tell them?" "I told them we couldn't release the children without written authorization from the custodial parent, you, but I thought you should know." "Thank you. I'm going to pick up the girls now." "Mr. Morrison, should I call the police?" "Not yet, but don't let anyone near my daughters except me." I was halfway to the school when Tommy called. "Boss, you need to get down here. Now." "What's wrong?" "Just get here." I called the school back. "Mrs. Henderson, I'm sending my head mechanic to pick up the girls. His name is Tommy Rodriguez, and I'll fax over authorization in the next 10 minutes. When I got to the hangar, I understood why Tommy had sounded so urgent. The place was crawling with federal agents. "Mr. Morrison?" A woman in a dark suit approached me. "I'm Agent Sarah Collins, DEA. We need to talk." "About what?" "About the 50 pounds of cocaine we found hidden in one of your aircraft." I stared at her. "That's impossible." "Is it because we have an anonymous tip that you've been using your repair business to smuggle pills from Mexico?" Laura. That vindictive, brilliant, psychotic woman had planted pills in my hangar and called the feds. "Agent Collins, I want to call my lawyer." "That's your right. But I should tell you, we also have evidence that you've been making large cash deposits into various bank accounts over the past 6 months. The money Laura had been stealing and hiding. She'd made it look like I was the one moving cash around. I didn't deposit any money into any accounts. The bank records say otherwise. I closed my eyes. Laura hadn't just disappeared. She'd left behind a trap that could destroy me completely. Dorothy arrived an hour later, looking grim. "Jack, this is bad. Really bad." She set me up. "I know she set you up, but proving it is going to be complicated. The DEA has bank records showing cash deposits in your name. They have pills hidden in your aircraft. And they have an anonymous tip that came in yesterday morning. Before she disappeared, which means she planned this. Agent Collins approached us. "Mr. Morrison, we're prepared to offer you a deal. Full cooperation in exchange for a reduced sentence." "Reduced sentence for what? I didn't do anything." "The evidence says otherwise." Dorothy stepped forward. "Agent Collins, my client is the sufferer of an elaborate frame-up by his estranged wife. We have documentation of her fraudulent behavior, and we believe she planted this evidence to retaliate against him for exposing her crimes." "That's an interesting theory, counselor. Can you prove it?" "Give us time, and yes." "How much time?" 72 hours. Agent Collins looked at me for a long moment. "Mr. Morrison, I'm going to release you on your own recognizance, but don't leave town. If you can't prove your innocence in 3 days, we're filing charges." That evening, I sat in my living room with Beth and Janie, trying to figure out how to explain that their mother had tried to send their father to prison. "Daddy, why were there police cars at your work?" Beth asked. "Someone played a very mean trick, and now I have to prove it was a trick." "Was it Mommy?" I looked at my 13-year-old daughter, this smart, intuitive girl who'd been watching her family fall apart for weeks. "I think so, sweetheart." "Is she coming back?" "I don't know." Janie crawled into my lap. "I don't want Mommy to come back if she's going to be mean to you." I held my daughters close and tried not to think about the fact that I might be going to prison for crimes I didn't commit. Saturday morning, Dorothy called with an update. "I've been going through the bank records. The cash deposits were made using forged documents. Someone copied your signature and used fake identification." "Can we prove it?" "Maybe. I've got a handwriting expert looking at the signatures, and I'm trying to get security footage from the banks." "What about the pills?" "That's trickier. They were hidden in a plane that's been in your hangar for 2 months. The owner is a businessman from Dallas who's claiming he had no idea." "You think he's involved?" "I think he's scared. Rich guys don't like being connected to pill smuggling, even if they're innocent." "So what's our next move?" "We find Laura and Scott because they're the only ones who can prove you're innocent." Sunday morning, I got a call from Kevin Walsh. "Jack, I think I know where Laura is." "Where?" "My family has a lake house about 2 hours north of here. It's been empty for years, but I drove by yesterday and saw fresh tire tracks." "Why are you helping me?" "Because I looked at those bank records. The signatures are forged, but they're good forgeries. Laura always was good at copying handwriting. She used to forge our mother's signature in high school." "Kevin, if she's there..." "She's desperate, Jack. Desperate people do dangerous things." "Are you suggesting I don't go?" "I'm suggesting you don't go alone." That afternoon, I drove to the lake house with Tommy and Bill. Kevin met us there, along with 2 sheriff's deputies he'd called as backup. The house was a small cabin on a secluded lake, the kind of place where people went to disappear. Laura's car was parked behind the house, along with Scott's BMW. "Laura," I called out. "I know you're in there. We need to talk." The front door opened slowly. Scott Brennan stepped out, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "She's not here," he said. "Scott, we can see her car." "I said she's not here." Deputy Johnson stepped forward. "Sir, we have a warrant to search this property." That's when Laura appeared in the doorway. She looked terrible, hair unkempt, clothes wrinkled, eyes wild. "Hello, Jack," she said. "Laura, you need to come with us. The DEA wants to talk to you about the pills you planted in my hangar." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. Just like you know about the forged bank deposits and the anonymous tip." She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You can't prove anything." "Actually, I can. Kevin found the other safety deposit boxes. The ones with the cash you've been skimming. The ones with the fake IDs you used to open those bank accounts." Laura's face went pale. "Kevin?" Her brother stepped forward. "Laura, this has gone too far. You need to tell them the truth." "The truth?" She laughed again, higher this time. "The truth is that Jack destroyed my life, so I destroyed his. Fair trade?" You tried to send me to prison for pill smuggling. You tried to send me to prison for fraud because you committed fraud. And you committed infidelity in your heart every time you looked at other women. You committed theft every time you spent money without asking me. You committed attack every time you raised your voice. I stared at this woman I'd once loved, this stranger who'd shared my bed and raised my children, and realized she was completely insane. Laura, you're sick. You need help. I need justice, she said. And if I can't have justice, I'll settle for revenge. That's when she pulled out the tool. Nobody moves, she said, pointing it at me. Nobody calls for backup. Nobody tries to be a hero. Deputy Johnson reached for his weapon, but Laura swung the tool toward him. I said nobody moves. Scott stepped back, hands raised. Laura, put the tool down. This isn't going to solve anything. Shut up, Scott. You're as weak as he is. She looked at me with pure hatred. You want to know the truth, Jack? I never loved you. Not really. You were safe. You were stable. And I thought that was enough. But it wasn't enough. It was never enough. Laura, think about the girls. The girls will be better off without you. They'll understand someday that I did this for them. You did this for yourself. I did this because you left me no choice, she screamed. You could have just walked away. You could have let me have what I wanted. But no, you had to be the hero. You had to fight back. I had to protect my family. From what? From me? I'm their mother. You're a stranger, I said quietly. The woman I married would never have done this. She would never have put her children through this hell. For just a moment, Laura's face cracked, and I saw a glimpse of the woman I'd once known. Then the mask came back. Goodbye, Jack, she said, raising the tool. The shot was deafening in the small space. But it wasn't Laura who fired. Deputy Johnson had drawn his weapon when she turned to look at me. One shot, center mass, and Laura collapsed. Scott was screaming. Kevin was calling for an ambulance. Tommy and Bill were staring in shock. I knelt beside Laura as she died. Her eyes were still full of hatred, even at the end. Why? I whispered, but she was already gone. # epilogue. The truth. 6 months later, I was sitting in my office at the hangar going through the final paperwork from the investigation. The DEA had dropped all charges against me after finding evidence that Laura had hired someone to plant the pills. Scott Brennan had testified against her in exchange for immunity, admitting to his role in the financial fraud. The girls were doing better. They were in counseling, trying to process the fact that their mother had tried to destroy their father and had died in the attempt. It would take time, but kids are resilient. Beth knocked on my office door. Daddy, there's someone here to see you. I looked up to see Jim Walsh, Mike Patterson, and Steve Morrison standing in my hangar, my former friends looking uncomfortable and ashamed. Jack, Jim said, we came to apologize. For what? For not believing you, for taking her side, for abandoning you when you needed us most. I leaned back in my chair and studied them. You believed what you wanted to believe. Laura was beautiful and charming, and she told you what you wanted to hear. That's not an excuse, Mike said. No, it's not, but it's human nature. Steve stepped forward. We were hoping maybe we could try to rebuild our friendship. I thought about that for a long moment. These men had known me for 20 years, and when it mattered most, they'd chosen to believe the worst about me. I don't think so, I said finally. Jack, you made your choice. You decided Laura was more credible than I was. You decided I was the kind of man who would become abusive and threatening when his marriage fell apart. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the runway where I'd rebuilt my life. The thing is, you weren't completely wrong. I did become someone different. I became someone who fights back when people try to destroy him. I became someone who doesn't forgive and forget when people betray him. I turned back to face them. Laura created a monster, gentlemen. Not the kind she claimed I was, but the kind she actually needed me to be. I'm not the same man you knew 20 years ago. That man was weak. That man let people walk all over him. So what are you now? Jim asked. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I'm the man who wins. They left without another word. That evening, I picked up the girls from school and took them to dinner at their favorite restaurant. We talked about normal things, homework and friends and weekend plans. For the first time in months, we felt like a real family again. As we were leaving, Janie took my hand. Daddy, are you happy now? I thought about that question. Was I happy? Laura was dead. My marriage was over. I'd lost friends I'd known for decades. My children had been traumatized, My business had been investigated by federal agents, but I was free. Free from lies and manipulation and betrayal. Free to rebuild my life on my own terms. Free to teach my daughters that actions have consequences and that sometimes you have to fight for what's right. Yes, sweetheart, I said, I'm happy now. And for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I actually meant it. Laura had tried to destroy me, and instead had destroyed herself. She'd tried to turn my children against me, and instead had shown them who their real protector was. She'd tried to take everything I'd worked for and instead had given me the chance to prove what I was really made of. In the end, she'd given me the greatest gift of all, the knowledge that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. As we drove home through the Texas twilight, I thought about the text message Laura had sent me that night. You think you've won, but this isn't over. She was wrong about that. It was over. I had won. And the man who'd emerged from this battle was someone who would never again let anyone destroy what he'd built. The mechanic had learned to fix more than just airplanes. He'd learned to fix his life.